To get started adding CSS transitions or animations into your app, you'll of course first need to create a style sheet. Now, I could come in and add those to my existing styles.css, but I like to actually come in and create a new style sheet that only has the animations. Now, I like that because I think it keeps it a little cleaner and doesn't clutter up the main styles, but it's certainly subjective and you could choose to do whatever you'd like there. Now, we'll come back to this in a moment and we'll talk through some code we're going to add. Now let's go over to index though, and let's first add in our reference to the style sheets. We'll add our link href, and we'll go into styles. All right, that'll get us started, and I'm just going to come in and paste this in, and we'll get our different style sheet attributes. Okay, so we're ready to go here. We now have our animations, and we have the animations.css actual style sheet available. Now, starting from scratch though here can be pretty challenging, especially if you're not really looking at any samples online. So earlier I gave a couple resources like Year of Moo, ng-animate, and some others that you can at least get some starter code. It may not be exactly what you want, but it'll help out a lot and save you a lot of time. Now for this demonstration, I have some sample code available, and you can get it from gist.github.com/danwallin. And there's two particular animations I target here. So let me go ahead and grab these first, and then we'll talk through it. So I'll paste these directly in. And as mentioned, they may or may not be what you want. You might want to tweak them some, but they'll definitely help you get started. At least, if nothing else, even if you took all this out, you'd have the shell that you could reuse the CSS classes we need. Now, we've already seen the ng-enter and ng-leave, but there's one more I'm going to show you that wasn't discussed earlier. You might have wondered with transitions, you know where to start, but how does it know where to end? And that's done through something called the active. So we'll get to that in just a second here. So first things first, the enter and the leave both have a transition, going to be the same one. We could certainly break that out though if we wanted, but for this case, we're going to leave all these properties the same. Now you'll also notice that I have some vendor extensions here for the transition property. And that would be to target maybe some of the older browsers that have some of the support built in, but maybe not the actual transition property. That may or may not be needed, really depends on what you're targeting. And then we have a height you can see in a position. Now when it enters, you'll notice that we're going to slide from the right 100 pixels over, and you'll notice this active right here. Now what the active does is when it's active, it's going to say go from the enter point to the active point. So we'll go in this case from 100 pixels to a left of 0, and that'll make it slide from right to left. We're going to go also on opacity from 0 to 1. Now we have the same thing here on the leave. We're going to go from an opacity of 1, and then when it's active, we'll go down to 0. And on the animation part for sliding it, we'll say start at a left of 0 and go to a left of -100. Now, you may even want to go in and put absolute for your position. Again, it really depends on what you're doing there and how you want it to work. Now, the other one I have in here is for a ng repeat we're going to be using, and I have a repeat animation. You can see I have enter, leave, and then we have the third, which is move. Now, as data moves in a list, for instance, we might want to apply an animation to that. So here's our base animation. We have our transition again. We're going to target all properties. And then we have an enter, an active for that, and then a leave and an active, and then a move and an active. So when we enter, we want to go from 10 pixels, really slight motion here, and 0 opacity, and then we're going to go to an active of left of 0, so 10 pixels over, and an opacity of 100%. And kind of the opposite for the leave here. Now on the move, this one's actually kind of cool because it's very subtle, but it adds a nice effect. On the move, we're going to say start at 0.5 or 50% opacity, and then at the active side, we're going to go to 100%. So now that we have the animations in and the different classes defined, we really only have two, repeat animation and slide animation. Now the next step is we need to hook these up to the directives.